All right, people, it is official. Barbenheimer is here. This historic day of Friday, July 21st. Something that does not happen very often, only once every 15 years, because, of course, those that don't know, 15 years ago, actually, like almost exactly 15 years ago, we had a very similar situation where it was The Dark Knight and Mamma Mia. Both came out the same day. Now, we are faced with another situation, another decision to be made. Barbie and Oppenheimer. Which do you watch first? Which do you watch second? Do you do the double feature? Interesting choice. So many options. And so I'd actually be really interested in seeing how you guys went about doing this. Let me know in the comments below. Are you seeing both movies? How did you see them? Did you see them both the same day? Are you watching Barbie first? Are you watching Oppenheimer first? Let me know in the comments below. Me personally, I've only seen Barbie so far. I've not seen Oppenheimer. Um, and that's not because I don't want to see Oppenheimer. I do want to see Oppenheimer. Um, and I do think personally, without actually seeing Oppenheimer, I do think personally, like, if you're going to do the double feature, I would probably recommend watching Oppenheimer first and then Barbie, just because, like, start off your day all dark and gloomy and, like, depressing, talking about the atomic bomb, and then end off your night on a high note with a fun little movie like Barbie. So I'll be watching Oppenheimer at some point, hopefully in the next couple days. It's just like a scheduling issue for me. But I'll do a review on that once I do see it. But yeah, so I watched Barbie, and I had a lot of hype going into this because everybody loved this movie. As you may have seen, this movie's doing fantastic at the box office right now. Number one biggest opening day for a movie in 2023 so far, which is insane. But it makes sense. I mean, the hype behind this movie is insane and totally worth it. Barbie, I just was so excited for this film. And you know what? I knew as soon as we first got that trailer, I was like, this is going to be a good movie. Now, one thing I do want to point out, though, is that I feel like a lot of people are kind of misjudging what this movie is, because the trailers definitely sell it as something that it's not really. The trailers, most of the footage is from just like the first 20 minutes of the movie in Barbie Land. Um, that's not what this movie is. This movie is not just like all sunshine and rainbows and Barbie Dreamhouse. It's it's way deeper than that. And I also want to warn parents as well. Like, this is not a kids movie. I mean, kids can watch the movie, but it's not a movie made for kids. I'll say that. It's PG-13 for a reason. There's some jokes in here. There's a bit of language. Um, some of this stuff will just go right over kids' heads. But then again, actually, the theater I went to, they like a whole camp brought these campers. It was like two buses full of kids brought to this theater, and yeah, they had some interesting reactions to some of the stuff in this movie. So I just want to preface that, like, if you want to take your kids to this, I think that's fine. It won't be that big of a deal, but just warning you now, there's some stuff in here that you kids might ask you about. And the other thing, as I was mentioning before, this isn't just the all pink and sparkly and dance numbers and stuff. There's a lot of deepness to this film. There's a reason there's so much Oscar buzz around this movie. It's because of the messages. This movie is very message heavy. It's a movie that I would describe as, and I knew this going into it, this is a political commentary on gender roles in society. Which, I mean, honestly isn't like a huge surprise, I think, to people that don't know that going in. And like I said, I did know that going in, and I had no problem with that idea. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I think that's cool. I'm excited to see that. This is, obviously that's I think a great message and a great story to be told, but really interesting doing it with Barbie as kind of the tool to convey that story and that message. I thought that was a really interesting, cool idea. But to be completely honest, I was super hyped for this movie, super excited for this movie. I may have set my expectations a bit too high because, a lot of people were saying like, oh, this is the best movie of 2023. And I was going to this thinking I was going to share the same opinion, but not so much. Barbie is a movie that I enjoyed. I think it was a good movie. Was it a great movie? No. Did I love it? No. But it was a good movie. It just, again, like I said, it's message heavy, which again isn't a bad thing. Like that's a big thing. Again, talking about the Oscars, like, when it comes to something for Best Picture, you want something with a message. That's something very important. And there's a great message that is being told in this story. But any of you that have any problem with anything that is woke will not like this movie, because this is a very woke movie. And I'm not one of those people that like says things are woke, but I mean, this movie is pretty much the definition of woke. And again, personally, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think woke is necessarily bad. But some of the stuff in this movie is just a little on the nose. It's a very feminist movie, and I love women, girl power and everything. But some of the monologues in here just seem very cheesy and kind of forced. And again, this movie isn't really, I mean, I'm a guy, so this movie isn't, I'm not the target audience. This movie wasn't made for me. I think a lot of women, and most women, at least from what I've been seeing, are loving this movie. And I think that's great. I think that this is a great thing to have. But personally, as a guy, I don't love it as much. Again, I still enjoyed it. I just found myself relating more to Ken, which, is obviously a natural thing. But Ken was my favorite part of this movie. So when you when you make fun of guys and make them the villains of this movie, I think a lot of it was kind of done in a playful nature, and I think that was nice and that was well done. But then again, at the same time, like, yeah. I do think it's cool because, it's kind of the reverse of real life. And you get to see that contrast in the movie as well. In Barbie Land, you have the matriarchy. The women are in charge of everything. They're the leaders. And the guys are lame. But then you go to the real world, and that's when Barbie gets to really experience, like, now the guys are in charge. And I thought Ken's reaction to that was really quite interesting. I didn't completely love the way his story went down, but Ken was definitely my favorite part of this movie. I love Margot Robbie as Barbie. Absolutely perfect casting here. But Ryan Gosling, man, is just a force to be reckoned with in this film. So amazing. And again, I so hugely relate to this character. And my favorite part of this movie is I'm Just Ken. That whole musical number and sequence. I mean, they released the song like a couple weeks ago, and I've been listening to it nonstop. That song is so relatable on so many levels. Actually, specifically for me, because very recently I got my heart broken. But, it's one of those complicated things where, like, it wasn't a thing, but to me, it was. And so just that line of the song when it's like, I'm just Ken, where I see love, she sees a friend, that gets me every time. But this actually seeing the song in action and seeing the dance number alongside as well really elevated the energy levels, and I really enjoyed that. Made it less sad and more action-packed and energy-filled. So I did really enjoy that. And just before we move on, I just want to talk about some of these other side characters in Barbie Land as well. Like, you got Kingsley Ben-Adir and Simu Liu and the Kuti Gatwa. It's probably not how it's pronounced. But as the Kens, they were great. Michael Cera is amazing as Alan. I loved his role. Really big surprise. He was in it more than I expected him to be. All the other Barbies are amazing as well. And the interesting thing about Margot Robbie's Barbie is that she is stereotypical Barbie. Like, that's literally what they call her in the film. And I think that's interesting because Barbie has been always a complicated brand, and they definitely point out in this film how how kind of the negative side effects of the Barbie brand and how it's negatively affecting women to see like Barbie as like the standard, like the perfect woman, and causing them to look down upon themselves because they're not like Barbie. I did enjoy that, and I did really like that, and that's kind of what our main Barbie's story completely reflects in this film, and her whole character arc here, which I do feel like her ending to me wasn't, it didn't feel completely earned. Like, it did feel kind of a bit out of nowhere, but looking back it does make sense, and I do like where it went. I just wish there was a little bit more build up to it. Again, Ken was just great. We do have this relationship in the real world, between a mother and a daughter, and I did enjoy that. America Ferrera was great. Ariana Greenblatt as well. I really, one of the things I loved the most about this movie was the connection between the mother, played by America Ferrera, and Margot Robbie's Barbie. I really, really loved that connection right there. I thought that was really sweet and really touching. Because this is a fun movie. It's funny, it's comedic and everything, but you also have a few little touching moments in there as well. So I really enjoyed that. And the other thing about this movie is it's very busy. There's a lot going on. It's a huge cast, and to be fair, most of the cast is like in the background and doesn't have like huge roles. One thing I do want to mention specifically is Will Ferrell. Man, I love Will Ferrell, and he brings the elfness to this movie. So I loved having Will Ferrell here, but I do feel like he and the rest of the Mattel like kind of corporate business guys were in it a bit too much. I feel like we could have just had the one scene in the office and just have that going on, because it does feel like when they get taken to the Barbie world, and I feel like they're kind of just getting dragged along, and it's like the movie just keeps reminding us that they're there, and it's like, oh yeah, they're there, but really they don't need to be. So yeah. Again, the musical sequences were the best. Both of Ryan Gosling's songs, I loved them. I fully believe that we do need a Ken spinoff, because the way this movie ends, it has the character arc for Ken, but it definitely leaves the door open for like we could get a whole project centered around this character and seeing what is next for him, and that is something that I really, really, really want. I think that would be amazing. So hopefully that is something that ends up happening. Hopefully, I think this movie does have a good shot at the Oscars for many things. I know it's been talked about in many categories for possibly Best Picture, for Best Original Song for I'm Just Ken. I know some people have been saying Best Supporting Actor for Ryan Gosling. I don't know about Margot Robbie. I do think this is definitely one of the best performances of her career. So I think she totally, there's the potential for that as well. But yeah, so Barbie, I enjoyed it. It was a good movie, but it was a little disappointing in some aspects. It's probably my fault for setting my expectations so high. But again, I'm not the target audience. This movie was not made for me. Women are loving this, and I think that's great. I think this is an important movie with an important message, and I think it's great that it's out there. And I'm excited to see Oppenheimer and see how it compares. Obviously, it's not really a competition. I do feel like, obviously I'm looking forward to watching Oppenheimer and everything, but I think like definitely between the two, Barbie's going to be the one I like more. But we will see. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you see Barbie? What did you think about it? Did you enjoy it? Did you love it? Again, are you doing the whole Barbenheimer thing? What's the order of that situation? Let me know in the comments below. But anyways, guys, for now, thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the movie life.